Well, welcome everyone. Excited to be with all of you. This is the third session of our Decoding Dementia gathering. It's actually our third annual. We started this 3 years ago as a way to explore senior living, explore how we might enhance the life of people living with cognitive change. And so, as I mentioned, this is our third session. But before we get into the program and I, in a more formal way, introduce our speakers, I wanted to share just a few things, which is one, Activity Strong was started by Link Senior in partnership with Activity Connection, NAP, and NCAP. And then talking about Link Senior, wanted to share with some of you, if you were not aware, that we are very excited about the fact that we were acquired and now are merging with the LifeLoop, which is now the leading, and was actually, but continues to be the leading resident engagement platform for senior living. Myself and the rest of my team are staying on, and we're just very excited about the future for senior living as a whole as we continue to contribute it, but obviously what we're going to continue doing for our clients. As a quick reminder, my name is Charles. Sorry, quick reminder. I haven't said it yet, but my name is Charles, and I am the General Manager / Link Senior for LifeLoop. And we at Link Senior, when we started Activity Strong, it was all about celebrating what we believe to be the most important part of senior living, which is the activities, life enrichment, anything that helps our residents feel connected to who they are and their source of meaning and purpose. We also started an initiative called All People Are Cool, because we believe that everyone is cool, including older adults. So very excited, very proud and honored to be able to continue these now with LifeLoop. As a quick reminder, in terms of CU credits, we can all earn up to 3 NAB, NCAP, NCTRC, and NCCDBC credits today. To earn the credit, you just need to attend 1 session or up to 3 and fill in the survey either today through the chat or when you receive it by email. Just please do it before the end of the day on September 6th. Please know that due to the high number of attendees, we will be sending these via email throughout next week. So starting Monday and before the end of the day, Friday, September 3rd. If you have any questions, please send them to us at webinars, with an S, webinars@linksenior.com. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to either get back to it, because I'm sure that our session is going to be amazing like the 2 first ones were. If you want to share it with your friends and family, please do, and colleagues. And I know that we are all aware of how Zoom works, but just make it very clear also, if you're using the chat, make sure that you select the everyone dropdown so everyone can see your contribution. And if you have a question for our speakers, please use the Q&A feature so that it makes it easier for us to resurface that to our speakers. And then last, but certainly not least, please have fun. We're here to learn, we're here to have fun together, and obviously we're here to advance senior living. So with that, I wanted to thank you, Penny, again for joining us. I know you've been on some of these before. I'm excited to have you. So Penny is our moderator today. She's a change maker, writer, advocate, and connector. And I also want to share that Penny is one of the reasons why we're all here today. Penny, a few months ago, connected me with Dr. Jennifer Carson. And Penny, I want to thank you for the time you took to prepare this with our panelists. And thank you for all you do for senior living. I'll start sharing so we can get going. And Penny, I know we have a video, so just prompt me for that. I'll be off camera, but ready to play it for you. Thank you very much.
I will do that, Charles. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks to all of you who are still joining us for this last hour before the happy hour with Brian. Over the past few hours, we've heard the case for inclusive living for people living with dementia. We've learned about 6 pathways to inclusion. And we also heard from Lori and Craig from Dementia Action Alliance as well, representing those who are living with dementia and cognitive decline. And I don't know if you heard all the programs that Lori was talking about who are led by and for people living with dementia. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about, and then Bryce and Sue Ellen, I'll introduce both of you, that Jennifer has said time and time again that there's just not one path forward. And she was also talking about her own experience in working in a memory care community back in the 90s. And it got me thinking that that was about 30 years ago. Memory care communities as a standalone community or a section of a senior living community really began around 30 years ago, which in the scheme of things, and maybe just for me, is not that long ago. And when you think about that and you think about all the changes we've had in those 30 years, I think it makes so much sense that we're having this conversation. So we know that there are people living with dementia who are on the board of Dementia Action Alliance, who are leading programs for Dementia Action Alliance. We know that people living with dementia contributed to that wonderful guide that we just heard about, produced by the University of Utah or the University of Nevada at Reno. Through the DEAR program. So we know about all of this, and I think it's because we know better now, so we're doing better, just as Jennifer said. So what we want to talk about today is this last step of putting all of this information together and really hear from people who did open up their doors. And so who we have here today is Sue Ellen Beatty. Sue Ellen is the CEO Emeritus of Sherbrooke Community Center in Saskatoon, where she spent 35 years. She's also been a global partner for the Eden Alternative in Western Canada for the last 25 years, and now she's writing a book to share with all of us about her experience on a culture change journey, and maybe she is going to give us some secrets so we don't have to live through all that she has lived through. And we're also joined by Bryce McBain. So we have 2 of our guests from Canada. Our third guest, Amy Ivy, was not able to do this. She had to cancel at the last minute due to a family emergency. So Bryce is also joining us from Canada, kind of on the other side of the country in Ontario. And Bryce has been building inclusive retirement and long-term care communities at the village of Riverside Glen in Guelph, Ontario for 10 years now. And he's passionate about the integration for all people, including people living with dementia, so they can live their best lives. And I should say the village of Riverside Glen is part of the Schlegel villages in Ontario. So Sue Ellen and Bryce, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm excited to talk with you and hear about your experiences.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
That's great. Sue Ellen, I'm going to start with you because like I said, sometimes it's one thing to hear all of this information about inclusion, but it's another thing to really hear the experience, the lived experience from someone who's been through it. So I'd love to know about Sherbrooke's journey with dementia inclusion and how it evolved.
Okay, wonderful. First off, I want to say that I'm so grateful to the speakers who went before and had joy of recognition in the information that was being presented. And, you know, when I can put Sherbrooke into that context, I'd just like to say, you know, the information presented was very similar to our path at Sherbrooke. So how we ended up in our dementia inclusive community, which we eventually called an inclusive community, because we thought we were actually, once again, singling out people with dementia. I had come to Sherbrooke in 1987 after finishing my Master's of Science in Nursing in Gerontology and the Environment, and Sherbrooke was going to be building. And so I came and I took a position as the director of nursing. And what I found there didn't make me very happy. I found that we had a locked ward, and I'm using these words very specifically, where we had 80 people who either had dementia or were differently abled. And it was a very stark place, most people in 4-bed wards. And there were no role models for people to know, what is it we should be doing? And so we did get the chance to build again, only being stuck in that institutional medical model, I did not see that we should not be segregating our people with dementia. So what we did was we created 5 memory care specialized neighborhoods where we, when Jennifer said small is important, we made them as small as we possibly could. And that was in 1993. So we opened our specialized memory care neighborhoods with a maximum of 20 people and as few as 9 people living in a house. We have something called the Sherbrooke Villages. If people want to check that out online, it was a small house model that we opened in 1999. And it was actually Dr. Bill Thomas's inspiration for the greenhouse model. And so we were very thrilled to have him come and visit. But at that point, I did not see that we were going down the wrong road. And so we specialized and segregated people behind locked doors under the whole idea of what Dr. Thomas calls surplus safety. So that was sort of our path. We discovered the Eden alternative in 1998. And so by the time we really entered into opening up our neighborhoods, we were well along the culture change path. And so we had a group of very highly engaged staff members who were very open to questioning the way that we had done things. So we were well along that culture change journey, which I think is a really important piece when you're going to do something like get rid of specialized memory care neighborhoods. And so our staff were used to participating and being engaged in our projects. I had an experience where my mom moved into Sherbrooke, and she had been living in assisted living, and she had taken to walking on the freeway at night. And so I would get a phone call saying, Sue Ellen, your mom is out on the freeway again. You need to go pick her up. And so I would go and I drive my car, and I could always find her because she was always in the same spot. And I would open the car door and she would get in and she would be absolutely delighted for this chance meeting. And so then I would take her home again. But I couldn't figure out a way to stop her doing this. And of course, the consequences of her walking on the freeway would be potentially terrible for her and for any driver who might come upon her. So really against her will, I moved her into Sherbrooke, and I moved her into a locked house down in the Sherbrooke Village. And I remember the first day she came, and these are her words, not mine. She came into the house, she looked around, and she looked at the people there. She said, I can't live here. I can't stay here. These people are all crazy. And her inhibitions were gone at that point. And I looked around and thought, oh, Mom, who are you going to talk to? Who's going to be a role model for you? How are you going to have well-being? And I was very familiar with well-being because I was actually a co-creator with Dr. Al Powers and others on those domains of well-being that were reviewed today, which I think are a really wonderful approach for people with dementia. But that was kind of my first personal insight that the model was all wrong. So we kind of stumbled along. My mom did pretty well, but the reason she did so well is because she left the house often. Staff would take her out, or my sisters would take her out, or I would take her out. And she was able to enter this great big world of Sherbrooke, which is kind of this really diverse and vibrant community. You know, we have a grade 6 classroom there. We have the Oak Trees and Acorns Child Care Center. There's a greenhouse. There's a gift shop. There's a community day program. There's a chapel. There's a Pepper's Cafe. There's an art studio. And people in the hallways all the time, you know, creating this small town effect. And I noticed that my mom did so well when she was out and about and able to experience all those domains of well-being. But I didn't know how to unravel this. It's kind of like Dr.
Sue Ellen?
Yeah, we can't hear her, unfortunately.
Oh,
No, I don't think so either. Oh, Sue Ellen, are you back up?
I don't know, am I?
Yes, you
Yes, you
are.
are, yes.
You for
Okay,
just a
where
minute.
did I get lost there?
It was right towards the beginning of what you were saying in that last paragraph.
Okay, so my mom, when she got into this diverse, vibrant community, she would respond so well. And she had been a school teacher, and when she saw the kids, her face just lit up. And so I had this personal experience. And then we had this wonderful opportunity to go hear Dr. Al Power speak at an Eden conference. And I believe that was 2016. And so we started along this path, but we didn't get very far. It was about 2018, and we heard Dr. Power again. And at that point, we had just the right managers in the crowd. And I just really want to acknowledge Belinda Sweeney and Kim Schmidt and Robin Kitchen for their passion about making this happen. And so we all felt this moral imperative to unwind what we had done. So we started, because we were so used to doing learning circles at Sherbrooke, we started to provide education by asking questions. And Dr. Power gave us 2 questions. He said, if you had dementia, would you do better surrounded by people who everybody has dementia? Or would you do better if some people didn't have dementia and could help you out? And of course, if you ask yourself that question, you know the answer. And then he also said, if I locked this door, what would most of you try to do? And we all knew that we would try to get out of the room or be very anxious about being behind the locked door. So I really want to thank Dr. Power for motivating us and for giving us that passion to undo what we had done. So we started with learning circles with the staff, asking them, what do you think about this? How would you do with those 2 questions? And of course, when people thought about themselves, they realized they wanted something very different than people at Sherbrooke were experiencing. And so we allowed lots of time for the learning circles. We did lots of huddles. Robin Kitchen, our manager for learning and growth, prepared fabulous education material. We talked to residents council, to the board. We started talking to family members, and we took it very slowly. And so we got sort of the whole community buzzing about what this potential could be like. And then we decided that we would test opening the doors for 2 hours one day. And so I remember texting Belinda Sweeney. I was out of the building that day, and I texted her and I said, oh, exciting day. She was sitting outside the door, which was our strategy for people who were going to bolt. And she said, not so exciting. And I said, well, what's happening? She said, nothing. Nobody's leaving. And so we kind of learned something that day. So gradually we opened the door for more and more and more hours. And then we started to work on other areas in the building. We made videos that we educated families with and volunteers. And you can actually find those on the Sherbrooke website in the area under publications if you wish to watch that video. But there were so many things that prompted us forward. You know, this whole idea of surplus safety. One night we were all in our big Tawau gathering space having a staff long service award evening. And these 2 ladies, we had the doors all opened up because we were spilling out into the hallway. And we watched these 2 ladies stroll by, wave at us. They both had purses over their shoulders, and out the front door they went. And pretty soon the staff from their area came down and said, oh my goodness, Millie and Deborah have just left. We've lost them. And so of course we put our protocol into place for a lost resident. And the story ends up to be a really great one because they came back later that evening with the city police, and they both had Tim Hortons coffee. That's a big Canadian coffee. Bryce will know what I'm talking about. And they had donuts, and they had the time of their life riding the bus around the city on this beautiful, warm evening. So we realized they weren't safe because we didn't know them. And so this whole idea that if people were behind locked doors, and of course, people would get out all the time with a visitor or whatever, that really this whole idea of safety was not correct. And so what we started to do was work with one resident at a time to create a care plan for them that would work for them. And so very individualized solutions like a tile in your shoe or a WanderGuard watch. And we didn't want to call it WanderGuard because we don't like the word wander. We called it a door alert system. And of course, they're all silent. But some people had cell phones. We had one fella who had come to us from a country in Africa. And his mission in life was to get on the bus every day and go downtown and collect clothing and things to send back to Africa. And of course, he became sort of at risk for safety because he was going out in 40 below in the winter. But we worked with the bus. He agreed to wear an identification thing saying he lived at Sherbrooke. And he started going out each and every day to continue doing what he was doing and to live at risk. And what had happened to this particular gentleman was when we had him in a secure neighborhood, he quit eating, he quit engaging. And the minute we got him back on the bus, he came alive again and started to thrive. And so there are so many of these individual stories, but I really believe that it is sort of about each resident, their experience, what would work for them. You know, what are those cups of well-being? Where do we need to fill them? And, you know, getting away from these remnants of the institution where we put people places because of their medical diagnosis. I mean, because one person might leave, like my mom, everybody gets locked up. And so having individualized this and really done all the culture change work, the educational work, listening to people, it was a very slow process. And then when COVID came, everybody got to experience what it was like to be locked in. And we all had more empathy for people with COVID. So that is one of the silver linings of COVID. And the way it was all handled is that we got insight into what it must feel like to be locked in and not have choices. So that was our journey. And it was slow. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And people worried about the risk without weighing the lost benefit. And so when we did all of those things and, you know, plan for one resident at a time, it worked really well. One other key thing we did was we had people without dementia move into the neighborhood with people with dementia while it was still secure. And of course, the people who moved in would agree to do that. And we had this wonderful woman, Alice, who moved in and she found meaning by helping people with dementia. We had one gentleman who would push the chairs on the floor all the time and make this terrible squeaking noise in the neighborhood below him. And so she said to him one day, "Why don't you push my chair?" And so he started pushing her chair and the problem was solved. And so because we had done all this culture change work and included people, our community was kind of ready for residents to help residents and for us to all have these opportunities to make a difference. And so integrating people into the neighborhood while we were still locked, people who agreed and could help was one of the things we did that I think really, really helped.
What a wonderful story, Sue Ellen. And thank you so much also for sharing about your mom moving in. It sounds like that was really poignant for you. And I'm going to come back to you because I have a bunch of questions that your intro conjured up in me. But Bryce, I want to hear the story of your community because similarities, but some differences as well. So I'd love for you to share what happened when you decided and the process in deciding to open the doors and become inclusive.
All right. Thank you. This is a very exciting opportunity to me. And good afternoon, culture change champions from Ontario, Canada. I've been with Schlegel Villages, the general manager of this continuum in Guelph. So both retirement home and long-term care integrated for 10 years now. And as long as I've been here, Schlegel Villages have had a focus on, an intentional focus on a social model of living. So measuring our success, moving from, if on the left side, there's an institutional model to a social model on the right, and continuing to improve year after year, always inclusive of people living with dementia. We have always had specialized education on how we support people living with dementia, that not only team members were welcome to attend, but also residents and family. 2015 was really an important year for us. The fall of 2015, Dr. Al Power presented at our operational planning. And that's where he talked about unlocking the doors to memory care. We left dreaming of what that could look like. We had at the time 3 memory care neighborhoods, 1 in retirement and 2 in long-term care. 2016, we sought, in the spring of 2016, we sought approval to open the doors from many stakeholders, including our own organization and our local health integration network that collaborates with us on who moves into our long-term care. And then during the summer, we spent a lot of time communicating and educating everyone. From meeting with resident and family councils to letters to all the POAs, and just meeting with neighborhood teams, and so forth. So making sure our communication was strong. It wasn't until the January 2017 when we actually opened the doors to one of our memory care neighborhoods successfully. We've done a lot of work since that I'd like to share with you, because I think it will also help in your readiness to give more consideration to opening your doors. In 2018, we introduced what we call a Me form. It's a My Experience form, My Story, which every resident, we complete for every resident. Ideally, the resident would complete it, but if unable, the POA or substitute decision maker can complete it with them. And this, and if not them, then we observe and create it for them, with them from our observations. But this form includes all the 7 elements of a well-being. And I know many of you are familiar with the Eden Alternative and the 7 elements of well-being. If not, I encourage you to look them up. I think those elements are important to all of us and how we live every day. So that really helped us build authentic relationships with our residents living with dementia. And then in 2019, we introduced what we call our dementia signature program, which has again, we call it Living in My Today, which has 5 pillars. So it really defines how we successfully focus on certain areas of living for our residents. Enjoyable meal times is one of them. And as a result, with that focus on enjoyable meal times and changes that we've made, it's really had people living with dementia want to stay in the dining room and enjoy meal times more. And meaningful and active engagement is another pillar where we have cues for people to more independently have more meaningful activity in their life, and have even extended activity to outside the neighborhood and beyond. So we are intentional about including people living with dementia, whether they're on a memory care neighborhood or off a memory care neighborhood, in activity beyond the walls of their neighborhood, it's secure or unsecure. And that's what I mean about always supporting an integrated neighborhood. We've had people living with dementia skydive and zip line, and that's risk in itself. And I'm sure if we can support them living their best life doing high risk activity like this, then I certainly believe we can consider opening more doors within our village. And I do think the actions that we are taking to live these pillars are setting us up for success. We don't have people wanting to really leave our memory care neighborhoods like they did when we opened our one memory care neighborhood. The other three pillars are thoughtful design is one. I think it's important how the neighborhood is designed to best support people living with dementia, empowered care partners, and supportive approaches to care. That's the fourth and fifth pillar. But as we educate our team on all of these 5 pillars, helping our people living with dementia live in the moment and meeting them where they are today, it's really resulted in them really not longing to, most of them don't long to leave the neighborhood. I was talking to leaders and team today, they're saying, we don't have banging on the door, Bryce. And one of our neighborhoods is designed with a beautiful backyard with sensory gardens and that's unlocked all day long. So they're more inclined, our residents living with dementia, advanced dementia, are more inclined to want to go outdoors and experience life in that area. So all these actions and all this education can help people live better where they're at, and it helps reduce the risk when you do open the doors if you've done a lot of this work. And I think we anticipated, everybody talked when we were going to open our one secure neighborhood that we did, anticipated everybody's going to want to run out and leave and all this risk. And in reality, more people were curious what was behind the door and went in. And more connections were made from them going in and wanting to connect with these residents. We have people even today still going to dine with residents in that neighborhood and in other neighborhoods. A real challenge, I think, is really the culture change from, okay, I have a designated care model in my neighborhood. I'm caring for these residents. What happens if one of the residents from the secure neighborhood, when you open the door, come over and they require some care on my neighborhood? What if they need assistance to use the washroom? What if they sit down in a dining room chair on my neighborhood and they want to eat my dining room? Well, they're our resident. You meet them where they're at and you support them. And you just communicate well with your team on the other neighborhood on where they're at and what they're doing. And it really fostered a stronger community and really fostered more teamwork within the community. So a lot of wins were had. We had some challenges with some residents really not wanting anyone to cross the threshold of their door that may walk in the wrong room. And it led to just, again, more education, more conversations. And, we do, even today, still have some with a yellow banner. The reality is some people, you want them to live well. So as much as we don't want to put a banner across their door, but if it's creating unrest for them and we care about their well-being, we have to try different strategies. And for some, that's been effective and supported that. I think it's something that we haven't stopped revisiting, though, as far as taking them off with change in time. Just trying to think of any other challenges for you. I think 10% of our families of the residents that were in the secure neighborhood before it became unsecure were resistant and really wanted the door to stay on. But ultimately, to their surprise, what it meant was maybe finding their loved one enjoying themselves on another neighborhood, on another sofa with another neighborhood. And they learned that, yeah, when they come to visit, they might not find them sitting on the neighborhood where they used to find them, but somewhere else. But they soon were grateful for the new opportunity we had provided the residents to explore more of the community.
Wow.
So lots to be learned.
There was so much to be learned, Bryce. And I remember as we were talking before this, you shared kind of a funny story the day that you were supposed to open the doors. Can you share that with all of us?
I can. Sometimes plans do go sideways. And we had planned everything well. We had a formalized plan, and that was shared. And I'll never forget that we had a go live date planned for opening the doors, and our maintenance team got wind that we wanted to open the doors and took the doors off before the go live date, which created a bit of panic from the neighborhood that was secure, now being unsecure. But at the end of the day, then we had a new decision to make. Do we leave the door off, or do we put the door back on? And we decided, well, our plan just got a head start. We're going to leave the door off and see how it goes. And those safety measures that we did put in place, that we planned to put in place, we put in place effective immediately, which was additional staffing. We planned for 4 weeks of additional staffing and hourly safety checks during that gave especially that 10% of families was concerned about safety some comfort that we had these safety measures in place, and we put them in right away. But within 3 weeks, with some adjustments in time, we had the additional support. Within 3 weeks, we had removed that additional support with some comfort that things would be okay. And today, we just do safety checks at the beginning of every shift. And that's the extent of it. Just the new team coming on for that shift just want to make sure they have eyes on the resident and how they're doing.
Wow. I just can't even imagine what that day was like. And then Sue Ellen, with your story too, that, you know, that 2-hour time period was kind of boring when you finally did open the doors after all that work. Now, Amy Ivy, as I said, is not able to join us. She's from Century Care, and in the community that she is with, Dunbar Village in Mississippi, they actually did a video about opening the doors. So Charles, I'd like to show the first part of this video because I think it gives Amy's story at Dunbar Village too. And I think that, again, it gives another example that people can relate to. And I saw in the chat earlier, somebody mentioned that they were impressed with a resident at Sue Ellen's community that just found that it was so good for her to be helping other residents. Look at this in the video as well as you watch it. So Charles, if we can play that.
So Penny, you want the beginning of the video, correct?
Yep, until that 3:37 mark. I think we're missing sound, Charles.
When the door was up to Camellia neighborhood, it was very stressful for everyone. For us care partners, we would have to hurry up and go through the door because the elders were sitting there at the door wanting to get out. And before, you had to worry about when you opened the door or closed the door if you were gonna...
You had to hurry up and close it so nobody got out. And then it's like you were, it almost felt like you were slamming a door in their face because you're like, no, stay there while you're trying to hurry up and close the door. That's horrible.
I just think there's something negative about coming up to a door that's locked. I mean, even though that was, no one ever said that or anything.
There was too much fear of what went on behind the closed door.
We used to have a lot of elders that wanted to get out and make plots to get out.
We had elders that put their hands to the doggy door, and they would knock on the door that went to the shower room also. And it was pretty confining.
I felt like it was more of a business. I think of this place as a home. Well, I had worked at a mental institution and I was used to locked doors and that was just the norm.
My experience with the door being up was there wasn't a lot of communication between care partners. Where there could have been more teamwork village-wide, there just wasn't because we were blocked off from everybody else.
Well, when I first found out the door was coming down, I was nervous.
I wasn't sure how they would react to us coming. That the people would think that we were just coming to see what we could see that was not good.
I thought, is that a good idea, you know?
I was against it. My main reason was losing somebody. Like, I was gonna freak out that we lost somebody, like get away and we couldn't find them in the building.
My initial reaction was anxiety. I was nervous.
I better put my running shoes on. I felt like the residents from the assisted living side were not gonna appreciate the doors being down, and the residents from memory care side coming over here, coming to, you know, them interacting with each other. I felt like it was gonna be really hard to get everybody to mix with each other.
Yes. I fear the unknown, just, you know, not knowing, another change.
Just the sense of them wandering off and we not knowing where they are, you know. They could be like in the building, but we wouldn't know that because they're, you know, free to roam around. And when at first they wasn't. So me, the way I felt was kind of panic.
Not really knowing what was gonna happen. Like if this elder was gonna try and run, or if they were just gonna beat on the doors all the time. Maybe they were gonna get out. When they first got to the door,
I've always felt like there was too much fear of what went on behind the closed door. There was not an understanding, even within the care partners. There wasn't good communication, and there was fear of them because they didn't want to work back there.
Well, thanks for playing that, Charles. You know, I thought that was just another just very eye-opening, very authentic experience of what this community went through at Dunbar Village. And I think one of the big things, and I see it in the chat too, that we kept hearing, is that so many of the feelings people had were fear-based, which is completely understandable, whether it's the fear of, as a care partner, not be able to care for and support and protect, for instance, somebody, whether it was that feeling that, you know, we have a regulatory system out there that we have to be fearful of, or a liability issue that we might have to be fearful of. So many of the things that we hear are because of fear. Sue Ellen and Bryce, we have a lot of questions that are coming in the chat, and I'd love for you to answer some of these because I think they're so important. So we're going to start with some of these questions, if that's okay. And one of the issues that has come up a few times is the staff ratio to residents. So I'm really interested in this as far as what changed. And Bryce, I'm going to start with you this time. Bryce, what changed as far as staffing, or how you staffed? How many people did that change when you decided to make inclusion a priority?
Well, I saw Karen North put a note in the chat with our staffing level at the time for 32 residents. We just added a +1 PSW, and we added it, if memory serves me, I think we added it at a 2 to 10 shift, so more evening support. And we ended up adjusting it for the first 2 weeks was 2 to 10, and we adjusted it to a 12 to 8 the third week, and then it didn't continue. But we really, where we added it was where we thought we had less support from volunteers, family visitation, and that to have eyes on.
Great. Sue Ellen, same question for you. As far as staffing go, changes when you decided to be an inclusive community, or a difference in responsibility? Any changes?
No real changes. I'd say that our managers kind of changed a little bit about what they were doing. For example, Melinda sitting at the door, that wouldn't be normally what she would be doing, but we engaged the community to help. And so we didn't supplement our staffing in order to do this. But you know, one interesting thing is, I think when we first started to do this, I'm not sure that we had insight that every neighborhood in the place was going to change. You know, there's 286 people who live at Sherbrooke and 14 different neighborhoods. And I'm not sure that we anticipated that there were going to be people who, you know, might need the secure neighborhood as, you know, defined by before. And so everybody has really had to adjust and to get innovative and creative in order to do this. But, you know, our home at Central Haven, like I loved what Jennifer said earlier, we're already doing this. And we realized over there, because they didn't specialize, because we hadn't had a memory care neighborhood there, that we could learn from them as well. And it was just kind of unwinding what we had done because we were stuck.
Got it. That makes so much sense. I'm going to pull in some questions from the Q&A. There's a bunch happening in there as well. So I'm going to read this, and this might be a question for those who are chatting as well. Feel free to answer this question from Vivian. They're a high-rise community with memory care neighborhood atop. Elevators run from the garage level to the top floor with additional egress to other areas of the community. Healthcare and independent living are separated. She's wondering if other communities have their memory care on the ground first floor level that lends itself to more openness. Bryce or Sue Ellen, was your traditional memory care community on the first floor? And
for us, 3 of them were. But 2 of them were not. And the one that was on the second floor is actually where we opened up very early on. But we have retrofit our elevators and the boiler room and places that are not safe for anybody to go for certain people. And that's kind of the individual care planning that takes place. And so I think it's really about individualizing all of that and looking at your building, because the environment is so important. That is where we spent money, was on technology.
Interesting. Bryce?
Yeah, so our design definitely worked for us in our favor, in that our memory care we opened is on the second floor, and elevators and stairwells are coded. So we have that added risk. Not to say we haven't had residents. We have had residents on our secure neighborhood today that is on the ground level that, you know, based on assessment on paper, when they moved into the village, it was noted that they needed a secure neighborhood, that we soon found that it did not serve them well, and we moved them to other unsecure neighborhoods. And then we also have examples of people that live on the upper levels, living with dementia, that can still access the code or ask for assistance to get downstairs and independently navigate our full community. But yes, I would say that in our case, the second floor really gives us time to notice somebody missing, to have that, you know, we want everybody to have that great awareness. If we think somebody would need some support beyond the upper level, then we have time to do so, and a great awareness from everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. So for those individuals, we have another question from Q&A. For those folks who might be a danger to themselves or others, and we know that there could be different safety concerns in the community. This question is about how to deal with that. For example, they have a working oven and a stove in their assisted living area, but not on memory care. So if they were to open the doors to the whole community, how would they keep those amenities for those who use them while keeping other individuals safe? Sue Ellen or Bryce, again, it's that whole question of balance. And I don't know if either one of you have an example of related to that. Oh, we have an open usable oven in assisted living. What could happen?
So we, when we designed our Kinsmen and Veterans Villages, we made a system where we could turn the stoves off with a keyed system. And so you actually have to know how to do that. And in the other areas, I don't believe we have the potential to do that, but it hasn't been a problem because people don't just come into a neighborhood where they don't belong and start using the stove. It's just not happened.
That's really interesting. And I think it's interesting too, and maybe one of you can talk about this, that idea of knowing the residents around you more now as well. Bryce, I know you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, similar to Sue Ellen, we have a keyed system for our stoves and ovens. And I have never seen somebody living with dementia go on another neighborhood and want to do any cooking or baking. It's usually to make connections with other people on that other neighborhood, maybe join them in the common area to watch TV or that, but or even visit in their room. But less, I can't think of one example where somebody went in and it was a risk that they started cooking.
I think that interesting question, because I think we could probably think of hundreds of the what if questions. There's no doubt about it. And that's whether we're talking about people who are living with cognitive decline or dementia or anything else. There's always those what if questions. I think I saw somebody in the chat said, I feel like it's like going to your neighbor's house and cooking dinner in their kitchen. You just don't do it, so that thought doesn't come up. And I think it's kind of reframing that whole perspective. If we're in a community that is built on relationships and being well known, where individuals know each other, they have relationships with each other, it's amazing how some of these things, especially those what ifs, are mitigated easier than we may think. So
and I also think that if I had any resident living with dementia that went to another neighborhood and wanted to bake or cook, I'd really want the team to support that. If you see that they're indicating that they'd like to do this, then let's set them up for success so they can do that, because that would be meaningful to them. And that's, I think, part of a cultural shift, right?
Yeah, I think it's really about preparing all the staff everywhere, because everyone has to have this inclusive kind of approach. And every resident is someone who you might need to care for, whether they live in your neighborhood or visiting the neighborhood. So yeah, it's, you know, another thing I wanted to say that I kind of forgot about was about alignment. For years and years and years, we tried to align everything with our mission, vision, and values. And our mission is that each person, we create a community where each person has a full, abundant life. And that was true for everybody who was not in a locked unit, because they couldn't just go access all these opportunities for well-being. So I didn't even see that was out of alignment, because it was just the best practice from years ago. And so I really encourage people to look and say, are all the residents getting the same opportunities? Or for those people behind locked doors, what's missing? Why do they want to leave, right?
well, and you might want to read something that's in the chat now and also in the Q&A, Bryce and Sue Ellen, when you have time, from Christine Brown, who's having a current situation. It's just like something that you're describing, Sue Ellen. And I think that you could all, Bryce and Sue Ellen, offer some encouraging words when you get a chance to Christine, because I think, Christine, what you're feeling in your community is something that I think so many people are dealing with, is really, you know, trying to you may not be making these decisions, but you're living with some of the decisions that are happening in your community, especially with isolation of residents and not including them. And I guess that's something, Bryce, I would ask you, if there was one piece of advice that you could give so many of our attendees on our session today who maybe don't feel that they have the decision-making power in their community, what's one thing that they may be able to do to start this conversation about inclusion?
Why do they want to do it? If they're passionate about why they want to do it. And I think everyone without title can be influential on gaining some advocacy at the front lines. Hey, I will support or with it. And the more support you get, I think will help you create a strong argument. But I think it really has to be why, and challenging other people that maybe are saying no is how do they want to be treated? How do they want to live their best life if they happen to live with dementia? Do they want to be able to go outside for some air when they want to, or do they want to be locked in? Yeah, I think hopefully that would influence a change in thought process.
Really personalizing it sounds like, to themselves.
So
and then
I really
sharing how you
agree.
can do it safely.
I really agree with what Bryce is saying. It's about making it personal, and it's about empathy, and really about alignment and what's working and what's not working. But I think lots of organizations might be afraid to have the conversations even. So I think starting and making it personal. I'm a great believer in learning circles, to level out the playing field and hear from everybody. And I'm a great believer in including the residents and asking them to have empathy. And so I really think the conversations are where it all starts, and to go slow and to make sure that people have the education and have the supports in place. And, you can take baby steps, but it's really important to take those first steps. So start.
I love that. So start. Bryce, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add that, and where I see our village evolving is more and more we're moving people and supporting people move into our unsecure neighborhoods, and they're living with dementia. Like our most independent retirement living unsecure neighborhood with 10 exit doors is 35% of the people are living with dementia on that neighborhood. So I think the more we can integrate them, people living with dementia in neighborhoods that are not secure today, it will validate we can do this. Look, so why do we have others locked upstairs when we've proven we could do this on all the other secure neighborhoods, unsecure neighborhoods, sorry.
I love that. I think that is a great place to end, because I think that what you are both talking about is not only where you currently are, but where you're going, and challenging everyone else too. And it's really that challenging of thinking differently. And as you said, Sue Ellen, take the first step, the conversation, bring this information back to your community, show your community these 4 hours of sessions. This is something that we can all do. And I just want to thank Jennifer and you, Charles, for being willing to host this, because it is controversial, and that's okay. We need to be talking. Controversy is one of the things that helps create change. So thank you. And Bryce and Sue Ellen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny, for helping us moderate this. Bryce, I was off camera, but just know that I smiled about your comment about, when Penny was asking how to think about it, and you just said, well, just why would you want to do it? I think that all of us are motivated for better. And these sessions today with all of you just helps us directionally to know that it's possible. And when you know that, it's difficult to not want that. So thank you all for this. I'll let you get off camera. Please stay on for the happy hour if you want, Penny, Bryce, and Sue Ellen. But thank you so much for this amazing session. And hopefully we'll be talking very soon.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Bryce. All right, Emily, we can close the third session recording, and we can have